Hello, folks, and welcome back to Moderna Excels. I'm Keith, your host, and I want to transition right now, and I'm coming back on because the White House briefing has gone live and are talking about the coronavirus. That might actually help us tick up a bit here. Moderna is actually a big part of the answer to these problems, so let's have a listen in.
An interview before the Super Bowl on Sunday. I mean, I'm guessing that's going to be an opportunity to reach a huge audience with your recovery plan. Is that going to be what he's going to use it for? And I guess also I'd like to know how will the president be watching the game and who he'll be rooting for?
Who he'll be rooting for? Oh boy. That's my first way to get hate mail from one part of the country. There's a division among our senior staff, I will admit, on this particular question, but I won't name names. The president will be watching the game in Delaware with his family, of course, his wife, Dr. Biden. In terms of the interview, and as you know, CBS is hosting the Super Bowl this year, and there's a long tradition of networks doing an interview with the president. So that will certainly be part of what you will see on Sunday. He, of course, the anchor who is doing the interview will ask whatever the anchor wants to ask. That's how these things occur. But his objective is certainly to convey to the American people that he knows this time is difficult. He knows it requires a great deal of sacrifice. He's incredibly grateful to the healthcare workers, to the frontline workers, to people who are working every day to keep us safe. And hopefully he will have the opportunity to reiterate the measures that we can take. Masking, social distancing, of course, ensuring that people are getting the vaccine when they're eligible to get the vaccine, and update the public on his efforts to do exactly that.
If I might just ask a second one for a colleague who can't be here because
Sure.
of COVID restrictions, from Brian Karen of Playboy. I mean, we saw a break with Saudi policy yesterday in the Middle East. So will the Biden administration openly condemn or implement sanctions against the Saudi government for the death of Washington Post writer Jamal Khashoggi?
So first, let me say and reiterate the murder of Jamal Khashoggi was a horrific crime. We are prepared to release an unclassified report with full transparency for Congress. This is the law, and we'll follow the law. Of course, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence would have further details, and I would refer you to them for additional specifics. We, of course, expect Saudi Arabia to improve its record on human rights. That includes releasing political prisoners, such as women's rights advocates for Saudi jails. We're encouraged by the release yesterday of 2 dual national American Saudi citizens. We hope to see further progress over the next coming months. And as noted in a couple of areas we've talked about, there's an ongoing review, of course, of our policies. You saw the president make an announcement yesterday about our engagement in Yemen, which of course is directly connected. But again, there'll be ongoing discussions and reviews by our national security team. I don't have any policy decisions to read out for you or predict for you at this point in time. Go ahead in the back.
Thanks, Jen. And I have 2 questions as well.
Sure.
And keeping with the economic theme of the day, my first question. Given the most recent job numbers and the continued unemployment and what you had to say today about particularly how minority communities have been affected, is this the right time to increase the number of refugees coming into the country and to also ease immigration and border restrictions?
Well, the president fundamentally believes that having a humane and moral immigration system in place strengthens our country, strengthens our economy, and many business leaders across the country have said exactly the same thing. The most powerful step that can be taken now is to pass the American Rescue Plan, because that is a step that economists across the board have said would help expedite economic recovery, help expedite getting people back to work. And without it, we will be years behind, according to a lot of economic data, where we need to be.
From the public health aspect of it, considering the coronavirus numbers are still where they are, the president has enacted more restrictions on travel restrictions, including South Africa. How does that play into it with and refugee policy?
Sorry, I'm not sure I'm understanding your question.
Well, I mean, considering the coronavirus numbers where they are and that we're doing more restrictions on travel, does that not also then affect refugee policy and immigration, bringing more people into the country, sort of following up on Kristen's.
Well,
Sure.
the refugee policy is increasing the cap. It doesn't change what our travel restrictions or our travel policies are. And of course, those are put in place to keep the American people safe. But those are not meant to do anything other than take necessary steps at this moment in time based on the advice of health and medical experts on where we need to restrict travel from. Obviously, when it's safe to undo those restrictions, our health and medical team will advise us on exactly that.
And then my second question, this is going to the Pentagon. This week, the Secretary of Defense announced a stand down for the military to discuss extremism and extremist ideology. Why would the military need to stand down from enemies foreign and abroad to have these discussions?
Well, my bet is that Secretary Austin and my friend John Kirby would disagree with your assessment there. But the president has tasked an overview and a review of domestic violent extremism in the country. That's coming directly from him, happening in the White House. I know that my friend John Kirby has a briefing later this afternoon, and I'd certainly encourage people to ask them more about those plans.
So further on that, Jake Sullivan mentioned the focus on domestic terrorism yesterday from this administration. I think a lot of people want to know, how does this administration define the term domestic terrorist?
In what way?
Well, does that include Antifa specifically? How do you set those parameters for domestic terrorists, especially as we see, a lot of focus on the January 6th, maybe not as much focus on some of the extremism and violence in the Northwest?
Well, I've answered a version of this question a couple times before, but I know everybody's not in the briefing room every day. The reason we have the review, which is not a political review, but is a review done by our national security team, something tasked, again, to take a review of domestic violent extremism, will cover incidents across the board. When they have concluded that review, I'm sure they'll have more to say on it. Okay, go ahead, Trevor. I think I've been skipping you unintentionally. I'm sorry.
Just one quick foreign policy question. Just talking about Iran and China and the need to have allies that are willing to go into those kind of thorny issues with you. There's been some reporting that the EU commissioner is going to have a phone call with President Biden and propose a 6-month truce on trade tariffs. And I'm just wondering if he's open to that and whether that would give you a united front going into some of these issues.
I know there's a lot of interest in trade tariffs, and that's also under review now. I don't have anything to preview for you. I can follow up with our team on plans for a call with the EU commissioner, and if that's being planned, we will, of course, provide you with a readout. Go ahead.
Yeah, following up on the several questions about school reopenings, does the White House believe, schools are contemplating this right now, whether to go back and reopen their schools. Does the White House believe that they should hold off on reopening until the CDC guidelines are out and until the American Rescue Plan is passed?
Well, I think some schools are looking for that guidance and also looking for funding. Obviously, different jurisdictions make decisions, but we are hopeful that when the CDC guidelines are out, that will provide some advice, or from a medical, more than that, specific guidance from our health and medical team, the expertise of Dr. Walensky and her team on exactly what mitigation steps can and should be taken to reopen schools safely.
But for schools in the moment right now, weighing whether they should reopen, you don't have a recommendation one way or the other, just to wait for the guidelines, or just trying to clarify?
We'll have I'm not going to get ahead of what the guidelines are. I think there are different jurisdictions that make different decisions. A lot of school districts are certainly waiting for those guidelines, but also waiting for additional funding so that they can reopen schools safely, make sure teachers are safe, students are safe, and families can feel confident in their kids being at school. Go ahead.
Thank you. Following up on one of the questions from earlier, and then I have a foreign policy question too, but is there any update on the state of a large-scale public sort of PR media campaign supporting the vaccination effort, or is it difficult to do that without knowing whether or not the inventory is sufficient enough to actually tell people to go to CVS or Walgreens or wherever they may be supposed to go?
Well, certainly part of our commitment is to launch a massive public affairs campaign, which is something we've talked about a little bit in here. It takes a little bit of time to get all your ducks in a row to get that going. But part of what we're also trying to do is utilize our experts to be out there publicly, do these briefings 3 times a week to, as Karen was asking about earlier, provide more accurate and clear information to governors so that they can also communicate with communities, empower local medical experts and doctors so that they can communicate more clearly with their communities, which are some of the most trusted sources. We've had a lot of officials out on local television, doing local television interviews. So even as we're preparing for more of a widespread or broad scale, I should say, public campaign, we've also had a number of members of our team doing everything we can to communicate effectively and efficiently on this particular issue.
And the foreign policy question, sometime overnight during the votorama in the Senate, there was a...
You just wanted to use that word, I know it.
There was a 97-3 vote in favor of supporting the location of the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem. Is there a position in terms of the Biden administration as to whether or not the Trump administration's actually implementation of the Jerusalem Embassy Act should be maintained, or whether it might move back to Tel Aviv?
It's a great question. I have not talked to our national security team about it. I will venture to do that and circle back with you directly. Thank you, everyone. Happy Friday.
All right. So that was definitely the White House briefing that we were just watching, and we were looking at the stock as it was going. It didn't seem to be affected too much. It's trading right now at 176.71, and it should be on the screen here. You could also see it, and we'll go ahead and, as these developments take place, we'll always keep an eye on that stuff, so that way we can report to you guys what exactly the effect on Moderna is going to be. Sometimes there's different developments that I think is important to the Moderna stock and to what we're achieving here on this channel in terms of growing that stock and growing our confidence in our investments and what's happening next, and knowing what's happening in the world that might affect it, who might be buying it, because this is going to affect the stock. Ultimately speaking, the coronavirus is going to be with us for some time. That's what it looks like. And so we have to be prepared for the many variants that are popping up. And this is right down Moderna's alley. Remember, they're already making a booster shot for the variant that's most concerning by all doctors and scientists, the CDC, the World Health Organization. They're all looking at this South African variant. Remember that. Let's take a look at the South African. Maybe we can share a little bit on that right quickly here. South African variant. Because you should really understand why exactly Moderna's got a hand up and an advantage in these ways. So let's get the most updated content in this regard for the South African variant. We'll look for anything that's taken place in the last day and see what exactly is being said about that. We have the first case of South African variant detected in Virginia. And remember, this is a very, let's look back, a moral catastrophe. Africa CDC heads say lack of vaccines for the continent will imperil the world. That's sad to know that, and you know that from everything that you've learned about me so far, that would make someone like me very sad to think that that's what's happening, and that quite frankly is what's happening. So we'll just go ahead and keep that in mind. And I'm looking at the live feed here to see what exactly, I know we're not really that big right now. I suspect that we'll get more interest as we're going. This is only the second day. I'll remain committed to this because I really believe this is a great modality for building wealth through Moderna. I think it'll be one of these companies that are a 10x company this year, and that ultimately speaking, well, between this year and perhaps even next year, I mean, if you can make an investment where you can double your money in 1 year, that's considered an outstanding investment, right? This company, I feel, is going to do that hands down. And that ultimately speaking, I feel completely comfortable in saying that Moderna will be a 10x company. Once they, these other things start rolling out and people really see the power of the mRNA platform and technology, I think that the investors will start backing it, seeing it as something worthy of backing for human progress. That's what happened with Tesla. Remember, Tesla didn't even have the advantage of having some hand up like what Moderna has. Moderna is working on changing humankind and the way we fight disease, while Tesla's working on humankind and the way we advance, go to extreme lengths in making our world more electrified and pulling away from fossil fuels. And again, both of these companies are working to forward humankind, and they're both technology companies at the heart of it. They're using technology to advance, and technology is really where it's all at, if you think about it. And so that's the advantage that Moderna has, is it's already focused on the deep technological basis to change the world. And as more people see that, and they might not even fully have to understand the technology itself and how you can program cells within the human body to combat disease, but just knowing that it's possible, and that's the great news, and that they're changing the way we fight these diseases, that we're winning, whereas before we lost. Chemotherapy wasn't cutting it for cancer patients. Everybody knows somebody who suffered with cancer. It's a horrible thing. And to think that Moderna has answers for this, that's amazing. We're in the 21st century. Of course we need answers for this stuff. Where have these answers been for so long? And so that's what I'm really confident about when it comes to Moderna, and just working on some of these answers. So UK, the corona variant picks up worrying South African mutation. All right, let's look at that. 22 hours ago.
Our top story now, a big focus on the show, a mutation of coronavirus known as E484K and fear to make vaccines less effective has occurred spontaneously in the fast-spreading variant that has now taken hold in the United Kingdom, which is referred to as the Kent.
And that's the key, right out of the door. And this is being said here in the United States as well. This variant is already in the United States. We've seen a moment ago, Virginia, we know South Carolina and other states as well. I think now in 18 different states. This South African variant, I said it to start with, will ultimately emerge to be the most prevalent variant within the United States. Why? Because this variant is hard to fight against. Many of these vaccines, they do not work against the South African variant because they have a low efficacy. Now, this is where Moderna shines. They can get in there, they're the software of life, and they can get in there and tweak and take advantage of their fast modalities to respond to this variant in a way that no other company can. Provide a booster shot, and now you're protected. That's how this, and now we're at 176.66. I mean, it's going great. We're heading right towards 178 in stunning fashion. And so this is how Moderna builds its wealth, builds its value. This is where the value is coming from in its capabilities because of these booster shots, because of their quick modalities and their ways and means, and being able to respond to these various variants that are popping up. All right, let's listen in.
Variant because it spread first in the Kent area. Experts in the country have said that this, in their latest assessment of the outbreak, that this further mutation has taken place. Although this change may reduce the vaccine effectiveness, the current ones in use should still work, according to the experts. Well, to talk more about this mutation and what it means, especially what it means for the vaccines, we're now joined by...
We know that the new Johnson & Johnson vaccine, as so far as the South African variant is concerned, is in the 50 percentile efficacy rate, and that's a really low efficacy rate when you consider Moderna's working at a much higher efficacy rate. They're working at a booster vaccine on the current variants and the current coronavirus as we know it. It was running with a 94% efficacy rating. So is the Pfizer. But the difference between Pfizer and Moderna in this regard is Moderna is already working on this booster vaccine. Pfizer doesn't have that ability. Pfizer does not have the mRNA technology. They're working with the mRNA technology through a combination of working with other partners and associations such as biotech out of Germany, and that gives them some ways and means to deal with this, but they themselves don't have any effect on that. They're not the ones themselves that are capable of doing that by themselves, whereas Moderna is. Moderna works quickly, they think fast, the Mr. Pincel, the CEO, has already talked about whenever we see these things happening, we're going to be responding quick. We're not waiting for permission. We're not asking. We are ourselves looking into all these variants, and we're responding, keeping our product relevant, working a booster shot if needed there so that people can have protection against this. And so that's going to be paramount. Right now we're at 176. It's flirting with going back a little bit. So it's keeping and holding its value, which is good. And I really still feel strongly that we might end around maybe 178 to 180 today, depending on how much steam we pick up. And there's a chance it could also take off as well. And this is a very fast and rapid changing environment. The stock itself, though, is realizing its value, and that's what's key to know. So I'm not going to stay too far on this. This is a long video. What we'll do is we'll end it here. I just wanted to pop in and let you guys see the updated information coming from the White House, what they're doing. They're talking about the stimulus. We missed that part of it, but there was an aspect where they were speaking about the stimulus to take on this coronavirus, taking it very seriously, stepping up the vaccination process. So there's going to be a lot of orders. Already 600 million orders between Moderna and Pfizer in order to vaccinate the population of the United States. And that's what it would take in order to vaccinate this population, because it's a double dose vaccine. And that means a lot of profit. We're going to be having remember, just towards the end of this month on February 25th, we're going to have the earnings call for Moderna. It's going to be a wonderful time. They're going to talk about what they've been able to accomplish in the first quarter of, going into this year. And they're going to be able to really shed a lot of light on the other things they're doing besides just the coronavirus. That's going to bring a lot of value to the table for this vaccine and this stock, and where we're headed and what we can all expect and get excited about. I personally am super excited about this, not just vaccine. The vaccine is a product of the mRNA technology, and that's what I'm excited about. That's where the value comes from. All right, folks, until next time, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like the videos so hopefully other people could see it. And I'll work on doing my best and providing the best information on this stock. I believe 100% in it, and let's see where it goes. God bless you guys, and we'll see you soon.